Morning glories display their livelihood, blooming every morning again and again, praising the sun as their flowers open. They're ritualistic through the lens of my human eyes. For me, though, flowers are a big part of what it means to be Unitarian Universalist. My dedication ceremony was on flower communion, so I feel I have an affinity for flowers and the flower communion's ritual. During the flower communion, we are reminded of our personal beauty and how that beauty is compounded by being together in community. We bring our unique flower and put them together in one vase at the center of the worship space. When we leave with a different flower, one of our neighbors. Sharing and enjoying each other's beautiful contribution as the ritual ends. Now, this ritual helps me make sense of how our simultaneous interdependence and independence really is what allows us to flourish. But for me, it's not just the ritual and the symbol of flowers that remind me of my connection to my faith, but also an active engagement with flowers and plants too. Gardening and connecting with the flowers and other plants is a deeply spiritual practice for me. And I've talked with many other UUs who feel the same way about nature. I am brought to the garden over and over again to make sure those morning glories can perform their ritual of thanks to the sun and to see that the peas have good sunlight too, and that the mosses and strawberries are doing well under the shade of it all. Physically putting my hands in the dirt and feeling the way that plants and soil are connected reminds me that there's something bigger than myself. Honestly, it reminds me why I'm agnostic and not atheist. There's something divine there for sure. And on a large scale, it comforts me to think about how morning glories will probably continue to take over Toronto yards long after human beings can't live here anymore because of climate change. Finding the comfort there certainly doesn't remove my angst about it. I'm enraged about the injustices which have led and continually lead to environmental and social disintegration. It's capital greed at the expense of life. And from my position of immense privilege, I'm grieving the certainty and stability that I was raised to believe should exist for me. And since I'm raised with Unitarian principles, I believe that that security, safety, and joy should be available to all people. I won't lie to you. I and many of the people in my life are scared most of the time about climate change, social injustice, and violence. So this image of the morning glories, it stays with me because certainly I'm scared, but I'm also hopeful. I know that I alone can't change everything, but I might as well get comfortable changing myself and getting my hands dirty working for justice. We need to hold on to not just a little bit of hope with the flowers of the spring, but an undying garden of hope all year round. Okay, that went out a lot. Now let's take a step back into this room and to the words which we hear each week. Put your feet down on the ground and breathe in. Let us live into the sacred truth that what touches one of us affects us all. From the joys and sorrows section of our service, which we heard only a few minutes ago, and the one that we hear every week. The first time I facilitated joys and sorrows, I was struck. This is the part that really matters. This is what community means. I was choked up at the sorrows and almost moved to tears again when the joy started to flood in. The responsibility to create safe space is ours. And joys and sorrows is a deep honoring of the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We're honoring each thread, each of our lives. We're all essential to the web of existence. And we're weaving sacred fabric together as we go through this ritual. The art we're making is so beautiful and painful and joyful that it chokes us up and holds us safely in its warmth at the same time. Weaving cloth has a deep history and obviously an ongoing presence around the entire globe. People have always needed to make clothes to protect themselves, and mats to sleep on and to pray on, and blankets to keep their babies covered from the cold and the heat. And I like to think about weaving too. When weaving, especially on a small scale, the cloth really shows the resources that we had at the time. Is it woolen, weaved plastic, or plant materials? And how tight is it? This might show us how tense our hands were as we weaved, or the tools, or whatever machine we used to weave it. If I were to weave for the first time, my lack of skill would be jarring. But a skilled weaver's craft would certainly shine through in the quality of the cloth and the style. How even and consistent is the cloth? What colors and patterns did you choose? Who taught you the way you do things? Hand-weaved cloth has personality, and it is reliant on context as well. We make cloth for self-protection and community protection. So these joys and sorrows, they're a reminder of the ways that our many spools of thread, our stories and our histories, all those things that make up our individuality, are intertwined actually. We might not remember that we're made of the same carbon or the same fabric or the same plants until we call it out. We might not remember that we hold our unique patterns at our core. We might forget that our fears are similar and that our empathy is deep. In this service, after the joys and sorrows, we unified our voices in song, coming home in our hearts at the end of each phrase in harmonies fulfilled. And I wonder, is the song over? Have we heard every phrase that needs to be sung? Are we a thriving garden? Sometimes youth and young adults feel like they don't bridge between the youth and young adult communities and the adult community, but rather face a cliff between these communities. Sometimes new members and guests with marginalized identities and those coming from different economic backgrounds don't feel welcomed and included. So I wonder, is the song over? Have we heard every phrase that needs to be sung? And are we thriving as a garden? I think that where there is intentionally placed space for listening, there is space for growth. But these are just my thoughts. I want to know what yours are. I want to know what makes you feel welcomed in the community. So Spirit of Life, bring us back to this community and back to ourselves for personal discovery this month as we explore our interdependence, to nourish each other and ourselves, and back to nourish each other. To realize our similarities and our differences in conversation, worship, the garden, and in the cloth we weave together over and over again.